Right.
So I want to discuss some other options that maybe would prevent CCP from taking Taiwan. But first, welcome back to our Peace Through Strength podcast, brought to you by the American Security Council Foundation. I'm your host, Joy Votrobek, and back with me is our senior analyst, Laurence Sanford. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Joy.
And you can find Larry's article, and he does go into detail on the background of Taiwan and China. So you might want to check that out at our website, www.ascf.us. Sign up for our newsletter and consider donating to the ASCF so we can keep you informed. So Larry, one thought I had, do you think that there would be a big enough economic consequence for the CCP from international pressure, like on supply chains and markets, if the CCP invaded Taiwan?
Yeah, I think there'd be a huge blowback. I mean, if they decide to do it, they'll do it and they'll suffer the consequences and they'll survive. The CCP is a totalitarian Marxist communist dictatorship, so they probably could survive, maybe, but whoever thought the Soviet Union would disappear the way they did either. But the Chinese have the wherewithal today to do it. There's talk about what is called the Davidson window. And this is where the head of the military back in 21 said there's a 6-year window, which means 2027, where the Chinese will be in position to invade Taiwan. Well, they could do it now if they wanted to. And they could do blockades, they could cut the undersea cables, they could interfere with the telecommunications, they could blockade Taiwan so nothing gets out of Taiwan, where 90% of the world's chips are manufactured. And so there's economic risk, but if they invaded Taiwan, that chip factory and all those chips, they're gone. So China's going to...
Taiwan has already threatened to
so the U.S. will suffer, but so will China suffer, and there'll be serious ramifications if China... So I don't know if they want to do it.
I mean, just over the recent Zelensky-Trump spat, the Norwegians said they weren't going to fuel our U.S. Navy ships, right? So
well, one private enterprise did, and he was quickly overruled by the government.
I heard that. Yeah. But that's just for example. Yeah. So could this happen to China if they decide to invade Taiwan?
Yeah. But, you know, Taiwan is a mixed bag again, like everything else in life, is that Taiwan is ruled by a political party, but the number 2 political party in Taiwan is the KMT, Kuomintang. And the Kuomintang is the party that fled China in 1949 after being defeated by the Communist Party with Chairman Mao. So the Communist Party gained control of mainland China in 1949. The KMT and its army of 500,000 fled to Taiwan and established the Republic of China. Well, it was already the Republic, but that's where they stayed. And in the mainland of China, it was the People's Republic of China led by the Communist Party. Both the KMT, the Republic of China, Taiwan, and mainland China both say the same thing. There is one China. And in Taiwan, they figured one of these days they'd be able to go back and claim the land. And so the communists have said the same thing. We're all one China. One of these days, Taiwan will be part of the mainland operation. And the thing that stopped it for years was the U.S. 7th Fleet. But that's when China didn't have a navy.
And now they do.
Now they do. They have
Bigger
a huge navy, biggest navy in the world. They got a modern navy, modern army, modern air force. I mean, their planes look like ours because they've stolen all that technology. And they have missiles. They even have missiles that are dubbed the carrier killers. And so they've got missiles that if the U.S. carrier fleets come down, they'll be blown out of the water. And so I don't see how we could possibly save Taiwan.
So should that matter, not just us, but what about regional powers as well? If Japan came in and India came in?
Missiles don't care which ships they shoot
No,
at.
no, I just meant as an alliance.
Oh, an alliance.
Working together again.
I think it would make them pause. That's a good point, Joy. And I think one of the things we've talked about in the past is we really should develop our alliances. And I think the alliances with Japan and the Philippines, for example, are getting stronger. And the other thing we can do is just make sure we arm Taiwan the way we've armed Israel so that they can fight their own war. Again, the problem with Taiwan is not everybody's on board on resisting joining China. And so, I mean, their defense budget is less than 2%, so they haven't been acting like they're afraid of an invasion. So are they willing to fight? I'm sure there's a segment that don't want to have anything to do with the communists, which I can understand. But on the other hand, it's better to be alive than being killed.
Yeah.
And China would certainly do a number if they invaded. I still think that the Chinese think in the long run, and that eventually the blockades, the military exercises around the islands all the time, the constant political pressure of worldwide political pressure, I think eventually Taiwanese will say, okay, we'll join you. So
just psychologically keep getting them dates that we're going to take over.
As you know, I'm a big fan of gray zone activities, and the Chinese have got that one down code. So they pull all sorts of stuff to make life miserable for Taiwan. So all it takes is one election in Taiwan, where I forget the name of the existing party, but the KMT comes back into power. The KMT says, okay, we'll join you. I mean, all it takes is one election, and it could happen.
And you brought up a good point that some of them may be okay with doing that to save their life, but they may not agree with the Communist Party.
Right.
So what about the Communist Party and China inside China? Chinese people versus the CCP? Internal problems. There appears to be some internal challenges that the CCP is facing.
Yes.
Do you think that could be a matter in deterring them from engaging militarily?
It could be. Again, they're a dictatorship, so they can do a lot, but I think they have internal things that should be exploited by the U.S. I'm, again, a big fan of gray zone activity. We should have radio-free Asia, radio-free China. We should be doing stuff on the internet. And I mean, the Chinese have penetrated our infrastructure and our websites and everything else. We should be doing the same darn thing to them that they're doing to us. Reciprocity is a good thing. And religion, for example, I pay attention to a couple of organizations that are of religious nature, and they talk about how they have great success in China, but they have to keep it secret because of the persecution.
Yes.
Chinese Communist Party is opposed to any organization that's a threat to communist rulership. And 7% of the population of China, roughly 100 million people, are Communist Party. So that means 1,300,000,000 are not Communist Party members. So anything that's a threat to Communist Party, that includes not only Christian churches, but it includes the Falun Gong, which is a spiritual group, exercise group that believes in truthfulness. So right away they're opposed to communism. Islam, that's why they're doing the genocide up in Xinjiang. And they have some other areas where they just are brutal organizations. So there has to be resentment. Their one-child policy, where they killed millions and millions of fetuses, of babies, unborn babies. There's got to be some resentment.
And there is resentment. I know because I met an individual who is part of the new Federation of China Party, it's called, I believe. And they are wanting to bring down the CCP. So there is resentment, there is movements that want to bring down the CCP. And I'm sure these days it's becoming much harder to keep out the international influence.
Right. China does a pretty good job with their firewalls and so forth, but yeah, they can be broken, and we should be making that a major effort. I don't like bang shooting kind of wars, but I'm a big fan of gray zone stuff.
And that was my Peace Through Strength strategy. Really, you discussed in your paper using that soft power directed at political change for the current CCP. So that's probably our best force for peace there, as well as using a combination of that and maybe our military alliances with, as we discussed, Japan and
India is a player. Australia is a player.
Yes, Australia.
And so there's we can do a lot of things and build up our own military, and we should start to decouple from China. I mean, we're very vulnerable to Chinese influence in America. And to me, the first thing that should go is TikTok. To me, it's a no-brainer, and we've talked about that before, but I mean, here's a group that is controlled or owned by the Chinese government, and they're leading Americans down cultural rabbit holes of anti-Americanism and pro-Chinese communist propaganda. Why we allow it to happen? In reciprocity, will China allow us into their country? No. So if they don't allow us, why should we allow them?
And it's not just TikTok, but then you're talking, I brought up DeepSeek several weeks ago about their AI open technology, and if you go on and download this open chat GPT, I guess type thing it is, and you ask certain questions about Taiwan, it will say it's a one China policy. So it's definitely propaganda there too.
So It's a long war, as they say. So we just got to keep peace through strength, and we have to develop our military and our economy.
And bring back our manufacturing that's crucial to our national security.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Larry.
No, thank you, Joy.
Appreciate your talk on your paper, and please check out Larry's paper at www.ascf.us. Thank you to our listeners. Please subscribe, share, and comment on this podcast on our YouTube and Rumble channels. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Substack. Listen to your favorite audio podcasts on either your Android or Apple phones. And join us again next time as we bring you the Peace Through Strength podcast.